Hey everybody, this is the 1 Hour Photo Podcast by Studio C41, and I'm Bill Manning. Today we have a very special guest. Man, this magazine company is on point when it comes to print, and we are talking with Michael Behlen of Analog. Well, hey, I was covering the microphone here, of Analog Forever magazine. So, I'm really impressed with this. I am not a subscriber right now, but I'm going to be, because I'm just blown away by this, because we see the magazines on the shelves at the grocery store, and it's really thin, really cheap paper. And there are some amazing photographers that we see that print out to those magazines, and it really honestly does a disservice to their work. And Analog Forever does not do that. I am just legitimately impressed with going through a copy of this magazine, and we have Michael here who sent a copy over here, and I'm really excited to talk about Analog Forever. So, Michael, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. That was like the best intro ever.
Well, honestly, like,
Smiling all crazy.
when I opened this, I was just legit blown away by this, because I mean, they're fantastic. I mean, when I hear zine, I think like photocopy, like, take the print and throw it on and just make a million copies or whatever. This is not that by any stretch of means at all. And this is like a legitimate book of just fantastic work. And first of all, thank you for sending me an issue of this. You sold me already, so I'm definitely going to subscribe to one of these. So, but before we get into Analog Forever, I want to learn a little bit about you, man. Tell me, how the heck did you get into this photography thing, dude?
I think with a lot of people, I was a young guy, and I've told the story in a couple different versions, and it's always a little bit different depending on my mood. But I think bottom line is I was like 16 years old. It was like when digital cameras were first becoming really popular. I don't know, it's like 12, 13 years ago now.
Yeah.
And there's this guy named Mike who I really looked up to. I was like a young kid in the punk scene, going to shows, and this guy always took like the best photos, and he always got tons of girls. And I was like, hey man, like maybe if I got a camera, right? And then you get addicted to the hobby, and you get into it, and you start taking pictures, and you're like, I can't talk to you, gal. I'm trying to shoot photos, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of evolves. And but joking aside, I don't really know why I started. Maybe that's with a lot of people. I just found it interesting. I wanted to try it, and the rest was kind of history. I kind of evolved from shooting bands and being, a punk guy with gauges and a mohawk, and started shooting weddings and did that, and realized I really don't like people that much. So I just decided one day, I really don't like doing this. I already work a day job. Why am I working Saturdays and Sundays doing this and dealing with bridezillas? Not really my thing. Yeah. So I really just sold all my Canon equipment. I got a pack of the Impossible Project film.
Nice.
During the pioneer days, and I wish I had that metal card still. It was and I shot a pack of film. Really, the film was terrible.
Yeah,
it was really bad. Like, I had the silver shade, and I went out and shot it with some buddies, and the film wasn't that great, but I had like the best day.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, oh man, I'm an analog guy. Like, I kind of knew that, but like, it wasn't for like popular hipster reasons. It was because I actually enjoyed it. Right. So that's how it all started. And I've been shooting instant film now for a decade. That's
really cool. And I'm going to say, you are the first guest that we've had come on that said that they started with Impossible film. There's certainly, I know a lot of people trash talk about Impossible because, there's a lot of history that's involved with that one, right? Dot Caps came in literally on the 11th hour and like saved this factory that Polaroid was about to decommission, and that was going to be it for Polaroid. It was going to be done. So literally he went into this factory not knowing how to run this factory, right? And so it was really just like, from the ground up. And so a lot of the struggle from the Impossible project, but now it became Polaroid originals and now back to original Polaroid. So it's fantastic to see that process come back. So hats off to Doc Caps for getting that up and running. So, but that's really cool. Instant film is a film that I don't shoot enough of. I very much enjoy the process of it. It's kind of funny. I like it because it gives me the opportunity to interact with people. Right. So like I got out of the wedding scene just because there's a special caliber person that just absolutely loves weddings, and I would much rather have the people that are very passionate, like our co-host Stephen Wallace, to do those. And for me, it's just like I like interacting people. I like doing portraiture and things like that. But the instant film is really like that. Pardon the bad pun, but an instant connection with that person. And you can actually like give them something physical right there off the bat. It's a really cool process, and I need to shoot more of it. So that's really cool. So what was your go-to instant camera at the time?
At the time, I had like a half broken SX70 that like sometimes shot out the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got it at a thrift store or eBay, something like that. And like, what's weird is like as the components degrade too, like you kind of get to know your SX70 because the connectors like change the exposure time based on the exposure wheel. But like every camera is kind of different, right? So like I realized that in my camera, either it was really working or really broken. I'm really not sure. But I was able to shoot 600 speed film in my camera with the wheel turned all the way dark and not have to use an ND filter as long as I took the eye off the ND filter on the light meter deal.
Oh, wow.
So it worked out for a long time. So like I didn't have to do anything crazy, and like it just worked, and I had a lot of fun with it. Like I didn't really take, maybe I still don't, but I don't take myself that seriously. And at that time, like it was just fun. Like, I was a young guy. I was just go to the lake, have some beers, take some pictures of your friends, like go on some adventures. I'm in Fresno, which is in the Central Valley. So we go to Yosemite, Kings Canyon, Sequoia. We're real spoiled, right? So, and then I kind of just got hooked in doing less of that Mikhail Kennedy style photography and more just doing straight landscapes. And I just found that maybe I'm an ADD kind of guy, but like I like shooting and getting the picture and being like, yeah, fucking got it. And then moving on, right? Instead of having to do the other way around. And that was my first one.
That's really
now
cool.
I use the Mint 670.
Oh, nice.
I really like it. Thanks, Gary. And it just depends. Like I use that because I like the manual controls, but I don't want to spend the whole conversation talking about gear. But the Sun 6 autofocus is like the best $100 Polaroid camera you can buy. Yeah, like it's super sharp. It's easy, and if you it's like only 3 settings, like normal, light, and dark. Yeah. With the 600 speed film, and you do it to dark, it exposes perfectly like 95% of the time. It's like awesome. No thinking. You just take pictures of what you want. That's great.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to definitely get some new Polaroid film and get it loaded into this little Polaroid 600 Spirit I got. So. Really cool. I know we could go on forever and talking about gear and everything along those lines, but I really want to dive in and talking about analog forever. So you were into photography, you were really big into instant film. Like how the heck did the transition from, or like how did you get this idea to do this zine?
Yeah. So back in 2014, this is kind of an origin story. I was shooting instant film a lot, and my buddy Con I was having a beer with, and I was complaining. I said, how come like there's no magazines, there's no online websites? I mean, there's a few, but like people didn't take instant film seriously. Yeah. And like you couldn't shoot a project on instant film. I mean, a few people did, but it was hard to get your work shown. Yeah. I was just complaining and being annoying. And he said, why don't you just do it yourself? And then I was, of course, drinking. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. Right. So I did.
Challenge accepted.
A zine called Prime magazine because I wasn't that creative and I used Prime lenses at the time. So that's how it started. So I did a couple issues of that. I did about 6 issues of that, and I featured about 60 to 120 people, depending on print and online during that time.
Yeah.
And then I got burnt out because I don't know if you guys know this. It's really hard to do a website and write articles and print and design all by yourself when you have a day job.
Yeah.
So I just got burnt out and just stopped, really.
Yeah.
And I relaunched and just burnt out again, and it just wasn't fun. So that's how I got involved in it to begin with. And then about a year after that, that was like in 2017, 18, I was having a beer with the same guy, and he said, dude, you look extremely bored. Like, he knows me real well, and he knows that if I'm like not stressed out, I'm like not really having a good time, which is bizarre. But I text my editor-in-chief now, Michael Kirchhoff, said, hey man, do you want to run a magazine? And he like said, like, again, right? And here we are. We got a team together, and the whole goal was to spread the work around where it would be a passion project and not be something that we all had to put on our own shoulders, but also do something for the community and for ourselves, because we just enjoy it. We like talking to photographers and writing about them, and that's it. I mean, really simple. I mean, it's kind of a DIY thing. We just said, let's do it. We'll figure it out along the way. And we did. And we're really lucky. Really, it just kind of worked out.
That's awesome, because it's really nice to hear that. So I've been struggling with bits of burnout myself, because I mean, I try to do written content, video content, audio content, and everything along those lines. And especially with COVID and everything, I'm in this office that I'm recording this right now, pretty much 16 hours out of the day, and you kind of get tired of this space, and like you just lose inspiration, and you just go, I don't want to be in this room anymore. And so I'm starting to come out of that burnout phase where it's like, I got to get this work done. I don't want to, fade away or anything along those lines. And so and here we are, we're back at it, and we're having conversations and everything. So it's really, really exciting. So Analog Forever magazine, I kind of want to dive into, like, how do you guys reach out to, or how you're calling in people? Like, because I mean, let me bring this back up. Because this is not a small book by any stretch of means. I mean, this is, over what I'm flipping all the way to the end of here, almost 150 pages, over 150, 150 pages in this. And there's some amazing photography in here. How are you curating and bringing in submissions for this work?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I'm really lucky that I have a core team of people that work with me. Michael Kirchhoff, who's been in the industry and for a long, long time. Ninian Kelly, who's in the Bay Area, who used to run the Tintype studio there.
Oh, cool.
We have Tim Scott, who's in Los Angeles, who's been in the creative industry for a long time. And they're all, sorry guys, they got like 20 years on me, right? So they were exposed to photographers that I don't even know about, right?
Oh, wow.
I'm 32. I grew up with like thinking like light leaks were cool, right? I mean, it's just like two completely different sets of ideas about why you shoot analog.
Yeah.
And through them, I'm actually exposed to a lot of people. Like, I didn't know who Michael Kenna was. Isn't that insane? Like, I didn't. Like, I just wasn't exposed to it. I didn't have darkroom in high school. I didn't have those things. So between the four of us, we all have extremely different tastes. So how we curate the work is we do open submissions. We try to blast it out as much as possible. And I think the hard part for us is that when you say submit to this magazine, everyone's like, oh, it's going to cost me something, right? And I think a lot of people don't click because of that, but it's absolutely free. And I personally look at every single submission and respond to every single submission.
Wow. Like
hundreds and hundreds of emails. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like there's nothing worse than sending an email and never getting a response. And you're like, man, I suck. Like so we do that. But as far as the curation, we generally have an idea of who we want our cover artist to be. We did Michael Kenna last issue in edition 2. In edition 3 coming up, that's available for pre-sale. We have Judy Dater. So that's really awesome. Most of that comes from Michael, Tim, or Ninian. And then as far as submissions, we just basically say, okay, we can't have 15 landscape people.
Yeah.
We all pick 2 or 3 artists that we like from submissions. And we then decide, do we want to do a feature or interview with them based on their story? Um, that's really it. I know it sounds really simple, but when you have a core team that all get to decide what they want to do, I'm even though I'm the founder and I'm the publisher, I'm pretty democratic because if you try to write about something you're not into, it's not
It's
going to be
tough.
good.
Yeah.
You have to feel it. I mean, we write 1,200 words for a feature, and our interviews are between that and 6,000 words. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
lot of writing. So if you don't like it, it's people aren't going to want to read it. You have to feel inspired about it. So
Sure. Yeah. No, I
yeah, I
think.
mean, you'll see the different artists in there, how different each
Mhm.
are. So yeah,
That's really cool. No, and I think that's really important to have some kind of connection with the photographer. From a non-objective journalist approach, yeah, you can have, okay, well, tell me about yourself, and how did you, similar. Not, I don't want to say similar to what we're doing now, but
yeah,
I have you on the show because you sent me a copy of this, and I love the work, right? I said I want you to come onto the show. This isn't let me. I need to get this done, right? This is I'm bringing on guests that I find the work inspirational from me, and then my hopes is that people will find this interview inspirational and help people kind of explore opportunities in the analog photography industry. Um, Now, I think this is really cool that you can actually make submissions. I cannot imagine the selection process and how difficult it can be sometimes because um, there's some amazing work in here, right? And I'm sure you guys get a lot of work that gets submitted where you're just like, ah, man, I really want this to go to print, but unfortunately, it may have not made the cut or something along those lines. Do you guys like pen that for like maybe another issue or something along those lines? You kind of keep it in the back pocket, or would they have to resubmit?
it's kind of both.
Yeah,
So when we go through submissions, I mean, and I just like to be honest, I'm not really like a BS kind of guy. So
sure,
the bottom line is if we get 500 submissions, 150 of those submissions are going to be low effort submissions.
yeah,
Like we ask pretty specific things that we need.
mm,
And if people don't want to take the time to really read the submission process, like we get a lot of like, here's my Google Drive, look at my pictures. And I'm like, well, guys, like we get
yeah,
so many submissions that like I really want to spend the time, but I don't like we all work day jobs. It's a passion project. You don't get into publishing because you want to make money.
yeah,
Like, so in order for us to spend the time in reviewing submissions, we really need people to it makes our time feel more valuable because we want to
sure,
share people's
yeah,
work who really want it, not just spamming every email they can find, right? So
yeah,
that helps, but at the same time, we have that, which is just like basically an automatic no go
yeah,
for us because if people put low effort into their submissions, we know that the feature and interview and the image collection process of high resolution images is going to take a long time,
sure, yeah,
right? So we don't have that much time. So then we also have stuff that we unfortunately decline, and we say, we like this about this, but not at this time. And then the other section is what we call our online repository of submissions. We
oh,
have
cool.
about 75 submissions from the last 3 issues that we've held on to,
Hmm.
and we will either slot them for an issue in the future or do an online interview or feature because
Yeah,
we do push out to 2 or 3 a month, and that's a great way for their work to be shown too. So it really depends.
yeah. Well, and
Uh,
I kind of agree with that. I mean, that's a tough process, and I agree. I mean, when I look at this work, there is a flow to it, right?
yeah.
And it's not just like here's just a bunch of images about this person. Like this actually showcases a photographer's style, right? So, like for example, I'm looking at this one right now with Yukumi Akiba.
Mhm.
She threads the image with I guess this is either some kind of twine or yarn, right,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
into the image, and I find that so unique. I personally have not come across that, right? So I instantly was engaged with something like this, and I think that is good on you guys for really going through that process. I know that's a very tough process. Um, So when people make submissions, what are some of the things that you guys are really recommending people are thinking about when if somebody's listening to this going, man, I really want to get into a zine, maybe I don't have the funds to do my own zine, that this would probably be an opportunity for them to be able to at least see what their work would look like in a finished product, would be a really cool way to go into that field. So I guess what would some of the big highlights, right, that really would shine for you guys as far as like this is what you would be looking for like a next issue or something along those lines?
So either the story behind the images is powerful,
Hmm.
right? And we get a lot of submissions, people who speak not that good of English too, and we help translate.
Sure.
The story behind the images is powerful, and that gives us something to write about, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not just a magazine that just puts a bunch of photos in order and then here you go, right?
Right.
So it's difficult for us to write about something that doesn't have a philosophy or a statement behind it, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I get artist statements that are, I don't know, this guy probably had to use like 8 hours of a thesaurus in order to like write this statement. And
Sure.
it's just pretentious. So we're not
Hmm.
looking for like pretentiousness,
Right.
but we want to feel what you feel like when you were behind the camera,
Yeah.
or afterwards or in the dark room, or like what drives you. Cause like, I don't think what we're necessarily sharing is photography, but we're sharing passion about the arts.
Hmm.
And without that, it's hard for us to go up to bat for you to put you on our website or in the magazine.
Yeah.
And that could be like, I really like snails. I like taking pictures of snails. Or whatever. Like
Right.
it doesn't matter what it is. And snails is a stupid analogy, but but it can be, right. So I think for us, it's like the umph. Where's the
Yeah.
depth behind that, right? And if that depth is like, I hate artist statements and this is why, cool.
Hmm.
So I also want to say there's nothing specific that we're looking for, because there's four of us and we're all looking for something different, right?
Yeah.
We have varying demographics. We just have another gentleman joining our team, and I think what's weird, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but as far as like diversity, what's crazy is that like, I mean, we're three Caucasian guys and a
Hmm.
Caucasian woman, right? Which is hard to deal with, right? Because like we all have like built-in biases that
Sure.
like just from growing up wherever we grew up.
Yeah.
But like I do our best to not look at anything to do with the photographer before we see the work first.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at first. And it's cool because that we don't get like any there's no prejudice. It's like, oh, this guy's in like Asia and he doesn't even really speak English. But I saw his photos first, and that's why I was drawn to it.
Yeah.
And now the second part's easy, right?
Yeah.
We just talk to him.
Right.
So yeah.
That's really cool. And that is really tough because there is a body of photographers, especially when we had the Black Lives Matter movement, that really came to light, right? And I have been a big fan of Tyler Mitchell for the longest time, and Michael Avedon is another photographer that I've been following quite a while. And there is certainly a style of photography that they are really tapped into that I would say you would not see in a white culture photographer aspect, right? Or from that aspect. So I find that photography absolutely fascinating, and their work certainly speaks out. So I would love to actually have both of them come onto the show. I think it would be a fascinating conversation with them. Um, but I agree. I think a story really gives an image lift. I think the you can't just submit a picture and say, "Oh, this is a pretty picture of El Capitan," right? Like we've seen a lot of amazing pictures of that monolith. We have seen amazing pictures of tunnel view, and you kind of grow callous and get numb to that, right? So we see the one of my favorite photographers, Clyde Butcher, has, and I had an interview with him, and we had a fantastic conversation about one of the pictures that is one of my personal favorites has a fantastic story behind it, where he was about to, he just didn't want to do it. It was rainy, crappy weather, and he decided, nah, I'm not going to do it. Lied back down, and then something spoke to him in his head saying, no, I got to go do this. Went out there and did it, and ended up being this fantastic image of storm clouds over in the Badlands, right? I love stories like that, and I think that is such a critical component um, to the storytelling when it comes to photography. So good on you guys for being able to go through that process. And I think one other story I guess I want to kind of tap into. I had the opportunity to go to a talk by Annie Leibovitz in Atlanta a
Oh,
couple of years
cool.
ago. Yeah. And so she had her book at work, and so she was going through some of the stories in there and everything, and she was talking about what happened. And I just absolutely, like, that was like one of the most memorable moments for me, because it was just like, you see all this amazing work, and like Annie is known for all the stuff that you see on the cover of all these magazines, but the body of work that she has that is very personal to her is not in these magazines.
Mhm.
And that added a whole new layer, at least to me, and understanding Annie as a photographer. It was just absolutely mind blowing. So I think that is super important to be able to document things in this about how photographers felt about a picture, because after the photographer is gone, we're only left to interpretation, right? What was this photographer feeling? What are they trying to convey? What's their message in this image? Um, if we lose sight of that, then that's just an interpretation. Oh well, based on this color scheme and these shadows, this is what they're trying to
Yeah.
say, right? It's like maybe, but maybe I'd rather just hear what the photographer was trying to say in this image, right? So I think that
Yeah.
it's incredibly important that we do capture this, and you guys are doing that in this magazine. So
Thank you.
um
I guess on that same topic,
yeah.
we have David Burnett in edition 3.
Mhm.
He's the gentleman who took the famous picture Napalm Girl from
Oh
Vietnam.
wow.
And Tim Scott, our designer and also our writer and curator, has an amazing article about him. And he details like a lot of his iconic images
Yeah.
in the story behind each one. It's not an interview, it's not a feature, but it's a lot of David's own words. And if you're into that, it's going to
Oh
be
man.
super awesome. Like I got to see it 2 or 3 days ago in InDesign for the first time, and I just blown away. It's
Oh
like it's
man.
the coolest part is that I get to learn about stuff that like I don't even know. Like I
Yeah.
run the magazine, but like everyone has freedom to really do what they want
Yeah.
on our staff. So when I saw that, I was like, I had no idea. Like this is so cool. So
Wow. No, wow, that's going to be an
yeah,
amazing article. I cannot wait to actually read about that. Those are some amazing images, and even you know, those are images just like you know, really makes you uncomfortable, right? Especially Napalm Girl. It's just oof, But it will be fascinating to hear and read about David Burnett's story behind that. So,
yeah.
um, let's talk about. So David Burnett is one of those. Who are some of the other folks that you guys got coming up in edition 3? Or excuse me, I'm sorry, edition 2, uh, uh, issue 3. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So we will have Judy Dater.
Mhm.
Uh, she is in really a photographer's photographer. She's an icon. That's being done by Michael Kirchhoff. I'm really excited. I didn't know a lot about Judy going into this. And if you don't know about Judy, I'm going to kind of lead it up to a mystery. And I want you just to Google her when you guys have some free time.
All right.
When she's worked with the likes of Ansel Adams, etc. We have Jerry Young, who's someone I had no idea who he was.
Mhm.
He's really not a career photographer. He works as a security guard,
Oh wow.
and he did a series about the mod slot, if I pronounce that wrong, garbage dumps where these families live, and the garbage dumps where 50 Mon and Karen refugee families live.
Mhm.
We have the work of Heidi Kirkpatrick, who is like an abstract fine art photographer.
Mhm.
Same with Lori Vibra. David Burnett, like I mentioned, and then I have some of my selections, which I'm a little bit more intimate with right this second, like Felicia Russo.
Mm-hmm.
She does these crazy light paintings on Polaroid film,
Oh,
and
cool.
she actually does it over, I think, like hours.
Wow.
And so what she does is she'll like expose one color on each like piece of Polaroid
Mm-hmm.
over a long period of time to make these like really dramatic light paintings that make up like these sci-fi looking Philip K. Dick pictures, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
And then Don Whitbread, he does long exposures in the desert of stars, and it's just super beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We got Kai Lewis. She does long exposures, pinholes on like X-ray film.
Oh, cool.
That's exciting. And we have Molly McCall and Noel Oswald. Um, so those are the names. If you go to our website, you can see an intro to each photographer that
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have in edition 3. And yeah, they're all amazing. They're all amazing. I'm so stoked.
Very cool. Well, since you've become very intimate with the articles in here, is there an article that either you worked on or one that somebody else worked on that you were just like absolutely blown away, that like instantly comes to mind that you always reference back to?
Yeah, yeah. So in addition to, I did an interview with Nika DiCarlo. I
Mm-hmm.
was introduced to her work last year. She suffered from an opiate addiction
Mm-hmm.
pretty badly, and she documented her journey from addiction to recovery.
Oh, wow.
And I think what's so cool about her series is that she was with the same partner throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, I mean, just from whatever movies I've watched, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that if you're with a partner through those things, it'd be very difficult to stay with that partner afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And her story is like a story of redemption and love
Oh,
and
wow.
even brutality. And I just, I got a couple emails from people who bought edition 2 and said like I could have used like not having photos of someone shooting up in it. And I
Mm.
get that, but I just think that we're trying to show something that's real, and sometimes stuff that's real isn't that pretty, which is
Sure.
okay. But for me, that was probably some of the best writing I've ever done was in edition 2.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's
So
that's amazing.
yeah, you're
That
not
is.
right? Like I failed creative writing, like so. Like, but
Well,
maybe it's because I was having to write about like Hemingway, and that just wasn't my thing, right? So
but no, that's fascinating. Here's the thing about that kind of photography, that the way I see it, if it invokes any kind of emotion, like even if it's like kind of cringy, um, was successful in my
yeah,
opinion, right? It's like, ooh, I can't look at that, or or wow, I'm really intrigued by this, right? I think that that if photography can evoke any kind of emotion, whether you dislike it or not, it was successful. And I think a lot of people will complain that there's so much photography going on, and I mean, this thing right here is devaluing photography, and it's just like, the way I see it is, no, it's not. It's just the way that you perceive the world is in a very pessimistic view, where maybe you aren't creating work that is not impactful and in not invoking an emotion, right? So yeah, we can post stuff on Facebook and get a whole bunch of thumbs up or a whole bunch of likes on Instagram, and it feels good and everything along those lines. But probably 45 seconds later, that image is forgotten and it just gets moved down to the bottom, right? This work survives in a book, right? And people are going to read this. So I think photography now is more important than ever, because I think that the way our media is driven is solely visual now, right? I mean, we have the podcast and all that stuff, but I mean, I'm moving into video because we are talking about and visually seeing things. So I think
yeah,
it's super important that we are documenting these things in a visual medium that is not going to be forgotten. So, I mean, I don't think Instagram is going to be with us for 300 years, and or whatever. These books are going to survive. So that's fascinating.
The only thing I wanted to add to that point is if people would stop chasing the ego and just chase what they're really into, I think they'd like
That's
shoot a
a
lot better photos.
yeah. I completely agree.
I do too. Don't get me wrong. Like, huge hypocrite, just like everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a hard lesson to learn.
And I think that's also in a sense of a way of growth too, right? I cannot imagine the gut punch that somebody would feel thinking that this is the most amazing body of work. This is their, what's the saying? Their opus magnum, right? Like this is the work, and then they submit it for critique, and they're like, "This is crap. Like this is
Right?
horrible. Like I'm going to dissect this image in every single way possible," and then you're kind of left with all your armor stripped off, right? But and I'll admit I have not gone through a critique, but also at the same time, I don't think my work is by any stretch of means like the most amazing thing in the world. But I do look at some of my very, very early work, right? When I first started, and then where I am now. I cannot even look at my work for the first 3 or 4 years. Like I look at it and go, let's forget that this first
Yeah.
3 years even existed, right? But I think that it's important for us to be able to at least see where we have grown. So that is very important. So, um, but yeah, that's a tough process for you guys to kind of go thanks, but no thanks. I mean, have you ever gotten everybody going, well, why? Why? How could you, or anything along those lines?
Not really.
Nah.
If you follow us on social media, we're probably not that great at like showing you who's running the mag.
Mm,
But if you know any of us individually,
hmm
like we're just dudes and a dudette. Like we're not like, I don't think we pretend like we're not the opinion, right?
fair
We would
enough.
like to be. Like I think we all have really good taste, but our goal is not to be influencers, right? That's
Sure.
not what we're after. I think when people get denied or declined, I don't think it's as big of an ego hit. Like we're not,
Mm,
we're a community passion project, so it's not that bad. But on the flip side, like I really don't have a desire to see any more like expired film of half naked girls in the
right.
window, or like it's just been played out. Like I don't have an interest in it. Like I don't think it's that interesting. Um,
It's so
like stuff
overdone
like
now.
that.
Yeah.
Like I, there's an exception to that. There's
Mm,
always an exception to the rule, right? So
yeah.
like I'm not saying at all, but like I know two instant film photographers like Herm Mersey, who I love, who does something similar to that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I love his work. And there's another gentleman that Mr. Klaas in Europe too, who do that. But I also think the American version of that and the European version of that is just very different too.
Yeah.
Like their ideas of sexuality are just different, right?
Right.
So, but beyond that, not really. I hope when people submit their work, they're just doing it for themselves.
Right.
Like if they're doing it so that way they can like turn around and like feel impressed with themselves and stuff. Like I don't know. I think if you keep
Submitting for
doing,
the wrong reasons.
yeah, like do it for yourself, and then at the same time, like you know who all four of us are. And we're on the website, and we have all the articles and stuff we've done for the last 5 years. So if you think that I'm going to submit my work, but it doesn't really fall into the taste of what we've done in the past, like I think if people spend more time researching where they're submitting and less time submitting, they would actually be more successful.
Mm,
Because just like everybody, we have biases about what type of work we like, and we don't try
sure.
to stick to those. But I like colorful stuff. I don't. I've never done an interview with anybody that's ever done black and white ever.
Hmm.
I like color. I'm an instant film guy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's just more of like a common sense approach to that. And
Yeah.
just because some person doesn't like your work, there's probably 1,000 other people that do, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, the people who speak negatively often are the ones that speak more loudly than the ones that do like the work. So that's a very good point. Um, so look, we got into one hell of a rabbit hole. But it was a great conversation. But I do want to bring it back to Analog
Yeah.
Forever. So This magazine is phenomenal, and I'm very much enjoying it. How is this pretty much available around the world? Like, can you how if I'm in Russia, can I subscribe to this?
Yeah, so answer is yes, available internationally. We only do one run of each edition, period, the end.
Mhm.
So we printed 500 copies of edition two. We are probably going to print around 700 copies of edition three.
Oh, awesome.
We've already sold out of edition two. Uh, but you can go, we have about 9 or 10 retail outlets around the world where you can still purchase edition two. Some examples of that are like Photo Olympics in Germany, Analog Wonderland in the UK, Blue Moon Camera in Portland, Photo Darkroom in Escondido, California, and some others. They're all on our website under the Stockist page.
Yeah.
They should all have some edition two. Oh, Film Never Die in Australia, if you're a Southern film guy and or gal. But we do ship internationally. So
Awesome.
depending, we don't have an MSRP for our international retailers because value-added tax, import duties, all that stuff. We sell them wholesale to those retailers, and they price them accordingly in order to make it, profitable
Affordable for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
Yeah.
each retailer may have a different price, but it's based on what their country does to their business. So that's how that works. But we do ship internationally. It's anywhere from $20 to $25 for shipping from the domestic United States to anywhere in the world. So it is hefty. However, I know you've said that the magazine is printed beautifully.
Yeah.
Our magazine or journal weighs 1.6 pounds.
Yeah. It's not
right. This isn't like, we get emails saying, how come shipping's so expensive? And it's like, well, it's heavy. Like you're paying for something to get to you and in one piece. We've only had probably 3 complaints of over 1,500 issues that we've sent out that didn't get there beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's how that goes into it. We don't do subscriptions. We only go out twice a year in the summer and the winter. And we just feel like subscriptions were meant for more magazines that went out monthly. So you didn't have to go buy it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And just honestly, it'd probably take more time for us to manage the subscriptions than it would take for us to say, hey, we're ready for you to come buy it again.
Yeah.
And so that's why we don't do that, but it is available around the world. Analogforevermagazine.com. And then when you're there, check out all the web content we have. We spend a lot of time writing about photographers. We love them and we want you to love them, and just spend some time getting to know some of your fellow community members.
That's really cool. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely going to read this cover to cover. It's also nice to see that some advertising in there for specifically analog photographers here as well. I mean, we got Blue Moon right here in the front and Cinestill Film, of course, right after that. So it's really nice to see that there is a body of advertising for things that I would find interesting in this rather than, men's cologne or something along those lines, right?
And, if I can just say this, Blue Moon, Cameron Portland, Edition One Books in Berkeley, who we print with, Cat Labs, Cinestill, and DLG Electronics, they have been amazing supporters of us. Like we're just people. Like we didn't say we didn't have a business plan or we just did it, right? So without their help, you guys, we wouldn't even be able to sell this for $25. So thank you for your help, guys. We love you.
That's awesome. I personally know the guys, the brothers right over at Cinestill Film. They're awesome guys. Cool. Very, very fascinating to have a conversation with them, especially both at the same time. Interview, man. It's wild to have a conversation with those guys. The ideas that bounce off each other is insane. So
I met them at the Darkroom Film Padilla in San Clemente 2 years ago, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's so. I need to get out West Coast, man. We can talk about the different cultures of community and photography in different parts of the country. Nashville and the South is this really cool vibe. I've only spoken to some friends about out west is a really cool vibe. So definitely need to get out there. Hopefully, I haven't heard anything about a next film, Padea. I know that there were talks of one, but I didn't hear anything. So as soon as you find out, let me know, man, because I'll make a trip out for it. So
I will. Before COVID hit, we were going to do our own thing.
yeah, where are you?
And we were just in talks, but like once like the world's not ending, I think, or like if we're for sure it's going to end, we'll do it anyway.
To do it.
Which way it goes, we'll probably do something, right?
I like that.
We really want to get people together, like a punk rock photo LA.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, so, totally down with that.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I know we can go on forever and talk about different photographers and their stories behind them. For me personally, I am a huge Annie Leibovitz fan. The sit down and talk with her was, all the stories that are like I want to talk about, but I don't like. We could go on, right? So, but I do have one question for you, and it's kind of our signature question: is what question did I not ask that you would have liked me to have asked?
You should start asking this question.
All right.
What's the best picture you've ever taken in relation to how intoxicated you were? That's probably a good one, man, because I would be expecting that question. Yeah, I think you'd throw some people off. Well,
all right, let's dive into that one then, man. Let's explore inebriated photography, because that is certainly a topic I have not dived into. So what's your best picture you've taken while inebriated?
Not sure it's the best picture, right? I was up at Shaver Lake, which is like it's in the Sierra National Forest, about 6,000-7,000 feet up there. And I was up there, and I happened to work for a local institution. I'm in finance, and I was up there, and I was by myself. I had my camera, and I met these two people, right? And they were drinking. They're an older couple, maybe in their 50s or 60s, and they said, "Hey, is that a Polaroid camera?" I said, "Yes, it is." Blah blah blah. And they said, "Hey, do you want some brandy?" I said, "Yes, I do." So I was just hanging out with these two older folks, drinking brandy with them. And they left eventually, and it was like 25 degrees, right?
Yeah.
But I was really warm, big surprise. So I went to go take pictures over there, and it was like I had some expired type 669 film in my Polaroid 110 camera, and Polaroid 300 land camera. And I took one of my favorite images I've ever taken. I don't think I've ever put it up on the website, but like I just felt like love from these people. Like I felt like it was just really cool, and that's probably my best time doing that. That's podcast appropriate, anyways.
And, was the horizon straight at least?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, because when you look
a little
at
bit of touch angle
of those cameras, right, it looks straight, but when you hit the button, because I was doing it vertically, I hit the button and I twisted just a little bit. I didn't notice till like the next day when I got home. I was so pissed. But it was more about the experience, right? Because I wouldn't have talked to those people if I didn't have this old weird camera in my hands.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so cool about especially film and analog photography, is it brings people together.
Oh, very cool. And the story behind it is fantastic. It's hilarious. So really cool. You'll have to share it, man. I have to check that out. So Well, cool, man. Well, Michael, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sending me an issue of Analog Forever. I am going to order the next one. I am very excited for the lineup that you guys are going to have in this. Before we go, though, how do we find Analog Forever, website, social media, and all that stuff?
Yeah, you can go to analogforevermagazine.com. That will take you to everywhere you need to go. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We have an online shop there. When you are there, go check us out. You can use the code C41 for $1 off if you want to get edition 3 pre-order. That's it. That's where you can find us. We're real easy to find. You can find all of the staff members there. If you want to connect with us individually, please do. And our address is on the website too. I love getting sweet mail. Like, hey, like postcards, letters.
cool.
I get some submissions via mail, and it's super cool.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, that's where you can find us.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Michael, again. And I look forward to the next issue. So, all right, guys. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. A very special thank you to Analog Forever for coming onto the show and a copy of the magazine. Please feel free to check them out. You can find Studio C41 on Instagram at studio.c41, and you can find us on Twitter, I guess, if you're really interested in hearing some of my rambling there. It's a studio_C41. But please, we are growing this YouTube channel, so please subscribe, and you will continue to see more awesome content and great interviews like we did here with Michael. All right, guys, well, that wraps it up. So until the next episode, shoot some film.
Dang it.
Yes!